She chose the rancher over her tribe. What she did next no one expected. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's dive into today's story. It was a morning like no other when the young woman stood on the edge of a decision that would change the course of her life forever. Her name was Aiyana, a striking Apache woman, daughter of the great chief Takakota. The weight of tradition hung heavy in her heart, as it had for generations. Her tribe, the Redstone Apache, valued loyalty above all else. Yet, there was something within her that yearned for more than the rules of her people. That morning, Aiyana's heart was torn between two worlds. The first world was her tribe, where her father, Takakota, and the elders held the reins of power. Her people respected strength and tradition, and it was her destiny to play a key role in its survival. The second world was the rancher, Matthew, a cowboy who had recently arrived in their land. His eyes were gentle, yet filled with a sense of resolve. He had saved her from a storm and shown kindness when no one else had. Aiyana's heart knew something was different with him, but she could not explain it. The tribe had always spoken of outsiders with distrust, and yet, in Matthew, Aiyana found a strange solace. It was this deep inner conflict that Aiyana had to face. The consequences of her decision could shatter her future and possibly her relationship with her family. The thought of defying her father and choosing a man from outside the tribe was almost unthinkable. Yet, every time she saw Matthew, her heart whispered something else. Her mind raced with possibilities. The warmth in his gaze, the kindness in his actions, the way he saw her for who she truly was. Not just a warrior, but a woman with her own desires, dreams, and fears, had awakened something in her she had long buried. But there was no turning back. Now, she had made up her mind. Aiyana knew that choosing Matthew over her tribe would not be an easy road. She would have to face the anger of her people, her father's disappointment, and the bitter sting of betrayal. But as she walked toward the quiet rancher that morning, her heart beat with a strength she had never felt before. She had made her choice. What happened next, no one could have predicted. The sun was setting over the vast plains of the west, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. Aiyana stood by the edge of the ranch, the weight of her decision heavy in the air. She could still hear her father's voice, his warnings echoing in her mind. The white man is not your ally. He is the enemy of our people. Yet, despite the weight of her heritage, she could not ignore the bond she felt with Matthew, the rancher. He had shown her kindness when the world around her seemed cold and distant. She knew that this choice, the one she had made with her heart rather than her mind, would forever change her life. But as she stood there, looking out at the horizon, something inside her told her she was on the right path. Matthew approached from behind, his heavy boots crunching on the dirt, his presence a calming force. Aiyana turned to face him, and their eyes met. For a moment, there was nothing but silence between them, the kind that spoke volumes more than words ever could. Then, he spoke softly, his voice carrying the warmth of the evening breeze. You made the right choice, Aiyana, but you need to be ready for what's coming. His words were simple, yet they carried the weight of an uncertain future. Aiyana nodded, her heart pounding in her chest. She knew what he meant. Her decision would not come without consequences. The tribe would never accept her choice, and she would have to face the repercussions head-on. But in that moment, standing there with Matthew, she felt a sense of peace she had never known before. The next day, as Aiyana prepared to leave the ranch for the first time since making her decision, she felt the heaviness of the unknown pressing against her. She had made up her mind to stand by Matthew, but what did that mean for her? Future? How would her people react? The fear of losing everything, including her family, weighed heavily on her. But she could not go back now. The life she had known was no longer enough. It was time to face what was ahead, for better or worse. As she stepped out of the ranch house, the morning air hit her face, sharp and cool. Matthew stood by the barn, watching her with a look of quiet determination. He had known this day would come, and he was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. "Are you sure you're ready?" he asked, his voice steady but laced with concern. Aiyana took a deep breath, her gaze steady. I have to be. She took his hand, a gesture that felt more like a promise than anything else. Together, they walked toward the uncertain future that awaited them. As they made their way through the plains, Aiyana could see the dust rising in the distance. It wasn't just the wind, there were riders approaching. Her heart skipped a beat as she recognized the figures. They were coming. The tribe had come for her. Aiyana's heart raced, but Matthew kept his hand firmly in hers, his presence a grounding force. She could see the figures clearly now, riders from her tribe, the Redstone Apache, and they were not alone. The air was thick with tension. This was it, the moment she had feared. The tribe had come for her, and this time, there would be no turning back. She had made her choice, and the consequences were now unavoidable. The riders from her tribe approached slowly, their horses kicking up dust as they drew closer to the ranch. Aiyana could feel her heart race, a mixture of fear and anticipation coursing through her veins. This was it. Her decision had led to this moment, and now, the tribe would decide her fate. The sound of hooves grew louder, and Matthew's grip on her hand tightened. He stood by her side, a steady presence amidst the tension. Stay calm, he whispered, his voice low and reassuring. But Aiyana knew the storm was coming. She could see the warriors' faces, their expressions hard and unforgiving. They were not here to welcome her back. They had come to take her. The leader of the group, a tall man with a face carved from stone, rode to the front. It was her father's closest advisor, one of the most feared warriors in the tribe. His name was Yuma, and his reputation was built on strength and unwavering loyalty to their ways. Aiyana. Yuma's voice boomed across the open land, his words carrying the weight of authority. You have broken the sacred bond of our people. You have chosen the outsider over your own flesh and blood. Do you think we will allow this betrayal to go unpunished? His eyes locked with hers, and for a brief moment, Aiyana saw the sadness beneath the anger. This was not just about loyalty to the tribe, it was about loss. The loss of a daughter, the loss of the future she had once represented. I made my choice, Aiyana replied, her voice steady despite the fear gnawing at her insides. I chose my heart. I chose love. The words were simple, but they held a weight that hung in the air like a storm cloud. You would turn your back on us for love? Yuma asked, disbelief in his voice. You think the outsider can protect you? He is not one of us. He cannot understand our ways. Matthew stepped forward, his jaw clenched, but his stance calm. I may not understand your ways, he said, his voice firm but respectful. But I understand Aiyana. She is more than just a part of your tribe. She is her own person, and I will stand by her, no matter what. There was a long silence as Yuma studied Matthew, his gaze hard and calculating. The tension in the air was thick, each moment stretching longer than the last. Finally, Yuma spoke, his voice low and dangerous. If you choose him, Aiyana, then you must leave. You are no longer welcome here. Aiyana's heart sank. She had known this would come, but hearing it from her own people, the one she had grown up with, made it all the more painful. She turned to Matthew, her eyes filled with a mixture of sorrow and determination. I've already made my choice, she said, her voice breaking slightly. I am with you. Matthew nodded, his expression unreadable, but there was something in his eyes, something that told Aiyana he was ready to face whatever came next, just as she was. The tribe's warriors stood motionless, waiting for the final word. The silence stretched on, heavy with the weight of what had been lost. Go then, Yuma said finally, his voice softer now, but still filled with the finality of his decision. Go with him, Aiyana. But know this, you will always be one of us, no matter what path you walk. Aiyana took a deep breath, her chest heavy with emotion. She turned away from the tribe, from the life she had known, and walked toward Matthew. Together, they turned toward the future, uncertain and full of challenges, but also filled with the possibility of something new. As they walked away, Aiyana's mind raced with thoughts of what lay ahead. She had chosen love, but at what cost? Would the tribe ever accept her again? And would her love for Matthew be enough to withstand the pressures of a world that had rejected them both? Only time would tell. Days passed, and the winds of change swept over Aiyana and Matthew's lives. They had left the tribe behind, but the weight of their decision pressed heavily on both of them. The ranch, once a symbol of solitude for Matthew, had now become their sanctuary, a place where they could begin anew. Yet, even here, in the quiet of the open plains, the past lingered like a shadow. Every day, Aiyana found herself wondering if she had made the right choice. Her heart ached as she thought of her father, her people, and the life she had left behind. But Matthew, ever steady and calm, was there beside her, a quiet strength in the face of everything they had lost. The first few weeks were difficult. Aiyana struggled to adjust to a life outside her tribe, a life that was completely different from everything she had ever known. The customs, the land, the people, everything felt foreign to her. Matthew tried his best to make her feel at home, teaching her the ways of ranch life. He showed her how to tend to the animals, how to fix fences, how to make the ranch thrive. But the loneliness she felt was suffocating at times. She missed the rhythm of tribal life, the closeness of her people, even the challenges of living with the weight of tradition. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Aiyana stood by the edge of the ranch, gazing out at the wide expanse of land that stretched before her. The sky was painted with brilliant shades of purple and orange, and the air was crisp with the promise of another cold night. She had grown to love the land, but it was still hard to escape the memories of what she had left behind. "Are you okay?" Matthew's voice broke the silence, and she turned to find him standing a few paces behind her, his face illuminated by the soft light of the setting sun. "Just thinking," Aiyana replied, her voice soft. "It's hard to let go, you know. The tribe, my father," she trailed off, the weight of her words hanging in the air. Matthew nodded, his expression understanding. He had been patient with her, never pushing her to forget the past, but always encouraging her to look ahead. "I know," he said quietly, "but you're here now, and we'll figure this out together." Aiyana smiled at him, her heart swelling with gratitude. He had given her the space to mourn what she had lost, but he had also given her hope for a future she had never imagined. That night, as they sat together by the fire, Aiyana felt a sense of peace she hadn't felt in a long time. It wasn't the peace of having everything figured out, but rather the peace of knowing that, despite the uncertainty, they were not alone. The next morning, as they went about their work on the ranch, a dust cloud appeared on the horizon. Aiyana's heart skipped a beat as she recognized the figures approaching. The riders were from the tribe. They had come for her. Fear gripped her chest, but Matthew was already by her side, his hand on hers. "It's okay," he said, his voice calm, but she could hear the tension in it. "We'll face this together." As the riders drew closer, Aiyana's mind raced. What would happen now? Would they force her to return? Would they take her away from the life she had chosen? The riders stopped just short of the ranch, and the leader, a man Aiyana recognized as one of her father's most trusted warriors, dismounted. His eyes met hers, filled with a mix of anger, confusion, and something she couldn't quite place. "Aiyana," he said, his voice rough, "you have broken the sacred bond of our people. You have chosen this man over your own family. Do you think we will allow this betrayal to go unpunished?" Aiyana felt. Her stomach tightened as she stepped forward, facing the warrior. "I made my choice," she said, her voice steady but filled with the weight of what she had to say. "I chose love. I chose Matthew." The warrior's face hardened, but there was something in his eyes that softened, just for a moment. "Your father will not forgive this," he said, his tone almost sorrowful. "But you are not beyond redemption, Aiyana. You can still return to us. Come back with us, and we will make things right." Aiyana looked at Matthew, his hand still in hers. She could see the concern in his eyes, but there was also something else, something stronger. It was the same strength she had seen in him since the moment they had met. "I can't go back," she said quietly, her voice firm. "I've made my decision. I am with him, and I will not turn away from that." There was a long silence as the warrior studied her. Finally, he nodded slowly. "Then you are lost to us," he said, his voice filled with finality. The riders turned and began to leave, but as they did, Aiyana felt a strange sense of relief wash over her. She had made her choice, and now she would live with it, no matter what. Weeks passed, and life on the ranch settled into a routine that was both comforting and unfamiliar. Aiyana had begun to adapt to her new life alongside Matthew, finding solace in the simplicity of their days. They worked together, cared for the animals, and spent evenings sitting by the fire. Yet, despite the calm of their new life, Aiyana could not escape the nagging feeling that something was amiss. Her tribe was still out there, and she had left them behind. Every now and then, her thoughts would drift to her father, to the traditions she had been raised with, and to the unspoken pain of leaving it all behind. Matthew had been nothing but patient with her, offering support whenever she needed it. But Aiyana could see the weight of her internal struggle in his eyes. He knew this was not easy for her, and he knew the sacrifice she had made. One evening, as the sky turned from pink to deep purple, Aiyana stood at the edge of the ranch, staring out at the horizon. She had become accustomed to the beauty of the land, but tonight, the stillness felt heavier than usual. "Are you thinking about them again?" Matthew's voice broke through her thoughts, and she turned to see him standing behind her, a soft smile on his face. He had learned to read her moods by now, and tonight, he could see the conflict that clouded her gaze. "I don't know how to stop," Aiyana replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's like a part of me is still there, with them. I don't know if I'll ever truly be free from it." Matthew stepped closer, his presence steady and comforting. "You made your choice, Aiyana, and you're free now. You're here with me, where you belong." Aiyana smiled softly, but the pain in her eyes remained. She knew he was right, yet the uncertainty still lingered. Could she ever truly leave the tribe behind? Would they ever accept her again? And if not, would she be able to live with the consequences of her decision? As the days went by, the uncertainty grew, and Aiyana found herself torn between the love she had for Matthew and the longing she still felt for her people. Then, one afternoon, as she worked in the garden near the barn, a dust cloud appeared on the horizon. Aiyana's heart skipped a beat. She knew what it meant. It was them, the tribe. The riders came into view, their horses moving with the same precision Aiyana had once known so well. Her pulse quickened, and she turned to Matthew, who had already seen them. His face hardened as he walked toward her, his hand instinctively reaching for the rifle at his side. "Stay inside," he said quietly, his voice steady but filled with a sense of urgency. Aiyana nodded, her heart pounding in her chest. She knew what this meant. Her people had come for her. They had come to take her back, or perhaps to punish her for leaving. Either way, it would not be an easy confrontation. As the riders drew closer, Aiyana's heart ached. There, at the front of the group, was her father. His eyes met hers, and for a moment, she saw a flicker of something. Pain, perhaps, or a longing for reconciliation. But there was no time to read the emotions in his gaze. The tribe had come for her, and the moment of truth had arrived. Matthew stepped forward, standing beside Aiyana. He had made his decision too. He would not back down. The riders stopped just short of the ranch, and Aiyana's father dismounted. His expression was unreadable, but his voice was cold as he spoke. "Aiyana," he began, his tone filled with authority. "You have dishonored your people. You left us without a word. You abandoned your family, your tribe, and everything we stand for. You have chosen this man over your own blood." Aiyana's heart clenched, but she stood tall, meeting her father's gaze. "I didn't abandon you," she replied, her voice steady. "I chose love. I chose the man who sees me for who I am, not just as a symbol of our tribe. Matthew has shown me what it means to truly live, without fear or shame." Her father's face hardened, and for a moment, the air was thick with tension. The riders behind him shifted uneasily, their eyes flicking between Aiyana and Matthew. "You have no place here anymore, Aiyana," her father said, his voice low. "You are no longer welcome in our tribe. You will never be one of us again." The words struck Aiyana like a physical blow. She had known this was coming, but hearing it from her father, the man who had raised her, made it all the more painful. Yet, as she looked at Matthew, standing beside her, she knew that this was the life she had chosen. It was the life she wanted. She was ready to face the consequences, whatever they might be. With a final glance at her father, Aiyana turned to Matthew. "I'm with you," she said quietly, her voice filled with determination. The future was uncertain, but together, they would face it. And for the first time in a long time, Aiyana felt a sense of peace settle in her heart. Days turned into weeks, and Aiyana and Matthew settled into a new rhythm, one that was not defined by the tribe or the harsh expectations of the past. The ranch, with its wide-open spaces and the gentle hum of daily chores, became their refuge. Yet, as the days passed, Aiyana found herself constantly looking over her shoulder, waiting for the tribe to come again. She knew that the decision to stay with Matthew would have far-reaching consequences, but what she hadn't anticipated was how much it would weigh on her heart. One evening, as they sat by the fire, Matthew spoke up, his voice steady but filled with the quiet concern that had become a constant presence in their lives. "You've been distant lately," he said, his eyes meeting hers. "You don't have to carry the weight of this alone, Aiyana. Whatever happens, we face it together." Aiyana smiled faintly, her fingers tracing the edge of her mug. "I know," she said softly, "but I can't help but think about my father, about the tribe. I can't forget where I came from, no matter how much I try." Matthew reached out, taking her hand in his. "You don't have to forget who you are, Aiyana. You just need to decide where you want to be. This place, this life with me. It's your choice, just like it was before." The warmth of his words comforted her, but deep down, she knew she was struggling. Her father's words still echoed in her mind, and the tribe's judgment weighed heavily on her shoulders. Still, she knew she couldn't go back. Her heart was here, with Matthew. As the sun rose the next morning, Aiyana found herself standing at the edge of the land, her eyes scanning the horizon. It was a beautiful morning, the kind that made the world feel vast and full of possibility. But the peace she had hoped for still eluded her. In the distance, a cloud of dust began to form, and her heart skipped a beat. She knew what it meant. The riders were coming again. This time, she wasn't sure if they were here to take her back, or if they had come with a different purpose. Matthew stood behind her, his hand resting on her shoulder. "It's them, isn't it?" Aiyana nodded, her heart pounding in her chest. "Yes, they've come again. I don't know what they want this time." Matthew's grip tightened on her shoulder. "Whatever it is, we face it together. You've made your choice, Aiyana, and I'll be here, no matter what." The riders arrived, but this time, there was something different in the air. They weren't hostile, at least not yet. They stopped a distance away from the ranch, and the leader of the group, the same warrior who had confronted her before, dismounted. His expression was no longer filled with anger. Instead, it was softened by something Aiyana couldn't quite place. The warrior stepped forward, and Aiyana felt her breath catch in her throat. "Aiyana," he said, his voice low and measured. "Your father has sent me. He wishes to speak with you." Aiyana's heart sank. She hadn't expected this. She had thought her decision had been final, that she had closed the door to the tribe for good. But now, as the warrior stood before her, the possibility of reconciliation hung in the air like a heavy fog. "He wants to see me?" Aiyana asked, her voice trembling slightly. The warrior nodded. "Yes, he has changed his mind. He knows what you've given up, and he wishes to speak with you. He wants you to come back." The words struck Aiyana like a bolt of lightning. Her father wanted her back? After everything? She looked at Matthew, who had remained silent, his eyes unreadable. "What should we do?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Matthew met her gaze, his eyes soft yet filled with unwavering strength. "You have to decide, Aiyana. If you want to go, I'll support you. But know that whatever you choose, I'm here. I won't stop you from doing what you feel is right." Aiyana felt a swell of emotions inside her, a storm of uncertainty and longing. She had dreamed of returning to the tribe, of mending the rift with her father, but at what cost? Could she go back to the life she had once known? Was it possible to reconcile the love she had for Matthew with the life her father wanted for her? As she turned to face the warrior again, she knew the decision before her wasn't just about the tribe or Matthew. It was about her future, and for the first time since leaving her people behind, Aiyana felt the weight of what it meant to truly choose her path. With a deep breath, she spoke. "I will go," she said, her voice steady. "But I will go on my terms. I will not return to the tribe as a daughter who abandoned her people. I will return as someone who has learned to stand on her own." The warrior nodded, a look of respect in his eyes. "Then come with me. Your father awaits." As Aiyana turned to walk with him, she felt the weight of the journey ahead. It wasn't just a return to the tribe, it was a return to herself, a journey to reconcile the past with the future, and to find a way to live with the choices she had made. As Aiyana walked alongside the warrior, the wind whispered through the open plains, carrying the scent of the distant mountains and the promise of what lay ahead. Matthew's presence was a constant in her mind, a reminder of the life they had shared, and the uncertainty that came with stepping back into the world she had left behind. With every step, the weight of her decision grew heavier. She was returning to her father and the tribe, but it was not the same woman who had left. Aiyana had changed, and she could only hope that her people would see that change. The journey to the tribe's camp was long, and as they rode through the vast landscape, Aiyana couldn't help but think of the past. The images of her people, of the customs she had been raised in, filled her thoughts. She could hear the voices of the elders, feel the strength of the land beneath her feet, and remember the way her father had looked at her before she had left. It had all been so clear back then. She was meant to follow in his footsteps, to uphold the traditions of the tribe. But now, everything felt different. The further they traveled, the more Aiyana felt the pull of both her old life and the new one she had chosen. She had made the decision to leave, to follow love instead of duty, but the questions lingered in her mind. Would her father forgive her? Would the tribe accept her choice? And most importantly, could she reconcile the love she felt for Matthew with the call of her heritage? The evening was settling in when they finally reached the camp. The familiar sight of the smoke rising from the fires brought a rush of memories, both comforting and painful. Aiyana had always known this place as home, but now it felt like a distant memory. As they approached, her father stood waiting, his figure silhouetted against the firelight. He was a towering presence, his face weathered by years of leadership and hardship. Aiyana's heart skipped a beat, her emotions a whirlwind of excitement, fear, and longing. The warrior who had accompanied her dismounted and stepped aside, allowing Aiyana to approach her. Father. His gaze was steady as he looked at her, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. Aiyana felt the weight of the silence, the unspoken words between them. Father, she said softly, her voice carrying a mix of respect and uncertainty. Her father's eyes softened for a moment, but then his face hardened again. You returned to us, but it is not the same daughter who left, he said, his voice firm but tinged with sadness. What has happened to you, Aiyana? Why did you choose him over your own people? Aiyana's heart tightened at the question. She had expected this, but it still stung. I didn't choose him over you, she said, her voice steady despite the emotion rising in her chest. I chose a life of my own. I chose love, something I never thought I would have. Matthew showed me that there is more to life than tradition. There is more than the expectations placed on us by our tribe. Her father's eyes narrowed, the disappointment in them clear. You abandon your people, your heritage, for a man? He asked, his voice cold. Do you think he will understand you? Do you think he will protect you as we would? Aiyana stepped forward, her heart pounding. He will protect me in his own way, she said, her voice rising with the strength of her conviction. But I also protect him. I choose him because he sees me for who I truly am, not just as a daughter of the tribe. I am more than that, Father. I am a woman, and I have the right to choose my own path. For a long moment, there was silence. Her father's expression remained unreadable, but Aiyana could see the struggle behind his eyes. I see, he said finally, his voice softer now, though still heavy with the weight of his disappointment. You have chosen a difficult path, Aiyana, but you are no longer the child who left. You are a woman, and your choices are yours to make. Aiyana stood tall, her heart swelling with a mixture of relief and sadness. She had expected to be rejected, but now, standing before her father, she realized that this moment, this acknowledgement of her decision, was a step forward. I am ready to face whatever comes next, she said quietly, her eyes meeting her father's. But I will not regret the choice I made. Her father looked at her for a long time before he nodded slowly. I cannot say I approve, but I will not turn you away. You are still my daughter, Aiyana, and you will always have a place in our tribe, though you have chosen a different path. The words were a bittersweet relief. Aiyana felt a weight lift from her shoulders, but she also knew that this was only the beginning of her journey. There would be more challenges ahead, more questions to answer, but for the first time in a long while, Aiyana felt that she could finally move forward. As she stood beside her father, she realized that love was not just a choice, it was a journey. And now, she and Matthew would walk that journey together, no matter where it led. The days that followed were filled with tension and uncertainty, but also a glimmer of hope. Aiyana and Matthew had returned to the ranch, but the world they had once known was no longer the same. Aiyana had taken her place beside Matthew, but the reality of her decision was beginning to settle in. The tribe had accepted her, but that did not mean they understood her choice. Her father's reluctant approval was a small step, but it did not erase the years of tradition and loyalty she had turned her back on. Aiyana's mind often wandered back to the days spent with her people, and the weight of what she had left behind still tugged at her heart. It wasn't just her father's disappointment she had to contend with, but the judgment of her entire tribe. They watched from the distance, waiting to see if her decision would prove worthy. Aiyana knew the eyes of her people were upon her, and the pressure to prove herself was suffocating. Matthew, however, was unwavering in his support. Every day, he showed her the kind of love and strength that made her feel seen and heard in ways that her tribe never had. But as the weeks went on, Aiyana knew that love alone would not be enough to bridge the gap between her past and future. One evening, as they sat together by the fire, Aiyana spoke quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know how to make peace with my past," she said, her eyes distant. Matthew turned to her, his expression soft with understanding. "You don't have to make peace with everything all at once," he said gently. "It takes time, and you don't have to do it alone. I'm here, every step of the way." Aiyana felt the weight in her chest ease slightly at his words, but the truth remained. She had to find a way to reconcile the two halves of herself. The Apache woman who was raised in tradition, and the woman she had become, standing beside a cowboy who had opened her eyes to a world of possibility. As the days passed, Aiyana spent more time reflecting on what she had left behind. She visited the land where her father's camp had been, standing on the soil that had once been home. A mixture of resolve and uncertainty. "But I go on my terms. I will not go back to the way things were. I've made my choice." Matthew nodded, his hand slipping into hers. "I'll be with you," he said, his voice steady. Aiyana nodded, her heart heavy but filled with determination. She had chosen this path, and now she would face whatever came next. The journey back to the tribe was quiet, the weight of Aiyana's decision hanging in the air like a storm cloud. As they neared the camp, Aiyana could see her father waiting for her. He stood tall, his eyes shadowed by a mix of emotions. As she approached, their eyes met, and for a moment, there was nothing but silence between them. "Aiyana," her father said, his voice softer than before. "You have chosen your path, and I have come to see if it is truly the right one. You are not the girl who left us. You have become someone new, someone who has chosen a life beyond our traditions. But tell me, daughter, is this life truly what you want? Can you live with the consequences of your choice?" Aiyana stood tall, her heart beating with the strength of her convictions. "I have lived with this choice every day," she said, her voice steady, "and I will continue to live with it. But I cannot change who I am or what I have become. I have chosen love, and I will not turn back from that." Her father nodded slowly, his gaze steady but filled with a quiet understanding. "Then you have made your peace with your choice, and I will respect it. But know this, Aiyana, the path you walk is your own, and no one can walk it for you." The words were heavy, but they carried with them a sense of finality. Aiyana had made her decision, and now, standing before her father, she knew she had done the right thing. The road ahead would not be easy, but it was hers to walk, alongside Matthew, with no regrets. The sun began to set over the distant mountains, casting a golden glow across the land that Aiyana had come to love. The journey had been long, and the road ahead uncertain, but as she stood there with Matthew by her side, a sense of peace settled over her. She had made her choice, and now she was ready to face whatever the future held. Aiyana knew that her path would never be free from challenges. There would always be whispers and glances, the weight of judgment from those who could not understand her decision. But she had learned something important. Her worth was not defined by the expectations of others, but by the strength of her own heart and the love she shared with Matthew. It had taken time, but she had found a place where she belonged, a place where she could be herself without fear of rejection. Matthew had stood by her, unwavering in his support, and together, they had built a life that was entirely their own. The ranch had become more than just a home. It had become a symbol of their resilience and the love that had brought them together. As Aiyana turned to Matthew, she smiled, a genuine smile that radiated the quiet confidence she had found in herself. "I never thought I'd end up here," she said, her voice soft but filled with meaning. Matthew looked at her, his expression warm and filled with the same sense of contentment. "I never imagined I'd have someone like you by my side," he replied. "But I'm glad you chose this life. You've made me realize that there's more to this world than I ever knew." Aiyana's heart swelled with emotion, and she reached out to take his hand, their fingers intertwining as they stood together. The world around them may have been uncertain, but in that moment, they were sure of one thing. They had found a love that transcended boundaries, a love that could withstand the tests of time and tradition. As the evening light faded and the stars began to appear in the sky, Aiyana felt a sense of completeness she had never known. The journey had been difficult, and there would be more obstacles ahead, but for the first time in a long time, she felt at peace with the choices she had made. The road she had chosen was not an easy one, but it was hers to walk, and with Matthew by her side, she knew she could face anything that came their way. Together, they had found a love that was stronger than tradition, stronger than the weight of the past, and stronger than anything that could tear them apart. And, as the night settled around them, Aiyana knew that no matter what the future held, she and Matthew would face it together, their hearts intertwined and their spirits unbreakable.